Hey everybody! So today we're continuing along with our season previews for every NHL team heading into this year, and we're going to be talking about the Pittsburgh Penguins. Before I get into the video, I just quickly want to say if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please hit that subscribe button and follow along for all my hockey content. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that like button. That really helps out the channel a lot and would be greatly appreciated. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins, perennially one of the best teams in the league, or at least certainly a playoff team year in and year out. Lot of talent, still led by Crosby, Malkin, Letang, Matt Murray in goal. This is a team that, won back-to-back Stanley Cups a few years ago, haven't really been back to that level since then, but is still one of the, better teams in the Eastern Conference. Going into this season, my expectations for Pittsburgh are pretty much what they usually are. There's definitely issues with that team. They're not a perfect team by any stretch. I don't think they're up there with the Tampa Bays and teams like that, but I do think that they're a very good team. They absolutely should be a playoff team. And I've talked a lot about the Metro division this offseason and just how difficult I think that division is going to be. Pittsburgh, I think, is a team that could finish, as high as first or second in that division, or could finish fourth or fifth. It's going to be really tight. It's going to take a lot of important wins throughout the season. But that whole division, I think, is really, really going to be tight all year long, and Pittsburgh is right in the middle of it. So, for lineups, I use Cap Friendly and Daily Face-Off. I look at both of those and then, basically base what I put off of those. And then if there's any particular changes I want to make, I do. But it's largely based off of what Cap Friendly and Daily Face-Off have. So, top line. Now, this is based on, I've seen what the lines have looked like at training camp so far. And just looking on Twitter, Dominic Cahoon has been up on the top line with Crosby and Gensel playing the wing there. So I put Cahoon up there with Crosby and Gensel for the top line. Obviously, we know how Sidney Crosby is one of the greatest NHL players of all time. Jake Gensel, 40 goals last year. I think he's going to have another 40-goal season this year and even more. Tremendous goal scorer. We know what he can do. Cahoon, kind of a question mark. He's never really been a first-line player at any point in his career. But, so if you put him with Crosby, you've got to expect that he's going to at least, produce a decent amount of goals. So, great top line there in Pittsburgh, as we all know. Second line, Alex Galchenyuk coming over from Arizona in the Phil Kessel deal, playing with Evgeny Malkin. And at practice today, Brandon Tanev was signed up on that second line, who was signed this offseason in free agency, playing with Malkin and Galchenyuk. So for right now, I have Tanev up there, because that's where he's playing in practice. And Tanev, really good bottom six guy. Don't really know what he's going to do in a given top six offensive opportunity. In Winnipeg, he was kind of started out on the fourth line, moved up to the third line at times, but was always a bottom six forward and produced pretty well with 14 goals last year out in a bottom six role. But now looks like he's going to get a chance to play up with the big guys and be a top six forward and play that right side. So that will be a lot of fun to watch. I like Brandon Tanev a lot. Real spark plug type player, energy guy. Not big at all, but not afraid to throw his weight around and go to the net and muck it up after the whistle, and he can drop the gloves if need be. I think Brandon Tanev is a nice addition to this Penguins team, and now it looks like he's going to get a chance to play in a real big role on this Penguins team. That leaves the third line to be Jared McCann, Nick Bjugstad, and Patrick Hornquist, and let me tell you, that is a very, very good third line. I think Nick Bjugstad is going to give them a third-line center that they haven't had since Nick Bonino left. He's really going to stabilize that third line, which they've struggled with the past couple of years, especially. I think he's a nice, he was there he got traded there last year, but I think now his first full season with the Penguins, I think he's going to have a really solid year as a third line center. Jared McCann, solid third liner on the left side, and Patrick Hornqvist, starting to decline a little bit offensively. He is getting older. He's 32 now. He's getting into his 30s. The offense isn't there like it used to be, but Hornqvist is still, does his job very well, knows his role, plays it very well, and he can give you a lot of net front goals, which is obviously very important in the NHL. So I really like that third line. I think they've got a great third line there now. Fourth line, Brian Rust, Zach Aston Reese, and Dominic Simone. Rust is a pretty good player. Aston Reese looking to stay healthy. He struggles to stay healthy his first couple of years here. But he did play 43 games last year and have 17 points. And then Dominic Simone, 71 games last year, 28 points. They've got some skill on that fourth line. I wouldn't expect huge offensive numbers, but I do think they've got some skill there, and they're all solid players. Moving on to the defense, we have Brian Dumoulin and Chris Letang returning as your top defense pair. Second pair, Marcus Pettersson, who just signed. He was an RFA this offseason. They got a deal done with him. He was their last remaining RFA. And Justin Schultz, pretty solid top four there when they're healthy. That's been an issue. Schultz tends to be injury prone. Dumoulin's missed time with injury. Chris Letang, it seems like it's almost every year with him that there's an injury. When they're healthy, they're really, really good, but they've struggled to stay healthy. And that leaves Jack Johnson and Eric Goodbranson as the bottom pair. Now, Jack Johnson, Jack Johnson's oof. He's really struggled at times. Sometimes he's been fine and looked okay. Other times he's really, really struggled. We'll see what he looks like this year. But they've got some other guys knocking on the door that could end up playing if Jack Johnson doesn't get his game together. And Eric Goodbranson, I actually really like on this Pittsburgh team, especially as a bottom pair guy where there's not a ton of pressure on him. In Vancouver, he was basically a top guy defensively. He was a top pair guy, or at least a top four, but he doesn't have that kind of pressure on him here in Pittsburgh, and I think it's going to allow him to just play his game, a defensive role. He's going to be their toughness. This isn't a team with a whole lot of toughness, so Goodbranson's going to be leaned on heavily when the gloves need to be dropped to do that, and just overall physical play. Goodbranson's going to have to lead the way with that, and I think he's a nice fit on this bottom pair to add that element to this Pittsburgh team and not have a whole lot of pressure on him, to be a top guy. He's just got to fit in and play his role. Matt Murray in goal, we all know, Matt Murray, he's interesting because the thing with Matt Murray recently has been consistency. He came in the playoffs, won 2 Stanley Cups back-to-back years. How incredible is that to start your NHL career? But since becoming the full-time starter, there's been a little bit of a consistency issue with Murray where sometimes he'll go on stretches where he looks like the best goalie in the league. And you know why he won Stanley Cups, and you know why he's, taken this team over, and they got rid of Marc-Andre Fleury and allowed Matt Murray to take this team over because of how good he looks. And then there are some other stretches where he just doesn't have it. He just can't find it, and he goes on some rough patches, and that's how a lot of goalies are. It's hard to find goaltenders who are lights out night in and night out. Those are only the most elite in the league. But Murray's had some consistency issues, so it's going to be interesting this year to see if he, puts a full season together where he, every goalie's going to have a few bad games over the course of a full season. There's no one that's going to be perfect night in and night out. But the thing I want to see from Murray is not going on these long stretches of bad games, not going on, where 2 or 3 weeks he really struggles, and then for 2 or 3 weeks he's lights out. Limiting the bad games down to just a couple or and then getting back on track. So I want to see more consistency out of him. And then Casey DeSmith is the backup. Very good backup goaltender. Not somebody you want, you would ever want to lean on. I don't think is like a full-time starter, but a good backup goaltender in the NHL. As far as extra players go, we have Teddy Bluger is going to be the extra forward most likely. And then there's Juuso Riikola on the back end and Chad Ruhwedel. I messed that name. Ruhwedel on the back end. So they've got pretty good depth defensively. If Jack Johnson starts to play really bad, one of them will come in. If Goodbranson doesn't cut it, one of them will come in. They've got depth defensively. There's some other younger players that could potentially see NHL time, especially if we get into injuries and you've got multiple people out of the lineup. Andrew Agazzino played up in the NHL for a few games last year. Joseph Blandisi could always be a call-up. Anthony Angelo, 23-year-old forward, he could get called up. There are some guys that they're most likely going to be starting the year down in Wilkes-Barre Scranton in the AHL who could get called up if need be. But overall, I think this Pittsburgh team is pretty good. They're not great. I don't think they're elite. I don't think they're one of the necessarily like top teams in the league. But I do think they're a very good team. I think they'll be a playoff team this year. And they lost in the first round. They got swept in the first round by the Islanders last year. We'll see if they come back and make it a little further this year. They certainly have the roster to do it, but that division is going to be very, very tough. So we'll see what Pittsburgh looks like this year, but they're still a good hockey team without a doubt. So with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon and merchandise store are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.